I've known Bob Wade for many, many years, but unfortunately, because both of us were flying on 11 different kinds of herbs and spices during the 70s, I don't remember any colorful anecdotes at all about me and Bob Wade.
Is an Iguanamobile. What does it do? Why would you make a mobile trailer into an iguana? I mean, I like iguanas, they're cute. I don't think I'd want one as a pet, but why would you do that to a trailer?
It obviously has something to do with growing up in Texas, in places like, El Paso or, Del Rio or Matamoros or Brownsville or wherever it might be. My dad was a hotel manager, and so it's kind of like the military. You move to a lot of different cities in the business, and you live in San Antonio as a kid, and there's the Alamo and all that stuff. I mean, it just keeps on adding up and adding up and adding up. And then, of course, El Paso, which was good because that gives me a whole nother viewpoint of, of Texas and all that kind of sensibility. In that case, it would be more of that kind of Mex-Tex kind of border town kind of thing. It's interesting that in the music scene, the idea of kind of a Texas sound or a Texas kind of music is pretty well accepted. In art, for some reason, people felt that you needed to do things like they did in Paris or New York or London or somewhere, and I was always a bit upset that all of this European work had been imported into especially places like Texas. So one of my goals somewhere along the line was to export Texas stuff to London or Paris or New York.
The first project that was really major was the Texas Mobile Home Museum, which we took to Paris, me and Daddy-O, and we took it at the Museum de Moderne. They were scared. They were scared of his 19-foot-long airbrushed horns, the two-headed calves. They didn't know what to think about those.
It was pretty amazing. There was a stuffed horse that was screwed to the wall, but it was rearing up and had its feet attached to the wall, so it was cantilevered out and not touching the floor. It was kind of wild. I mean, the fact that it was even there.
Because it was California.
Well, because it was such an absurd exhibit, I mean, such a. I mean, he brought in some paintings and stuff that were real, the genuine hang-on-the-wall art, but then there was his stuff, which defies the whole concept of, what is sculpture and what's painting and what's Texas.
This is a great Texas thing because this is called a dewlap, and it sounds like a saying here in Texas because it dewlap under her chin.
I don't know about other regions, but I know for sure that Texans are really fascinated by critters, all kinds of critters. And when I was deciding which critter I wanted to make in a big scale for this art park project upstate New York, a friend of mine, Monk White, had just brought a giant stuffed iguana back from Puerto Vallarta, presented it to me, and I said, oh, look at this wonderful looking weird thing. I think a giant one of these is the way to go. And which, we did make eventually. A 40-foot version of this iguana became, this crazy famous thing on the top of the Lone Star Cafe, and people just seem to be ultra fascinated with that sculpture and the fact that this big huge dewlap hangs down in this mouth and these scales. As it turns out, a lot of the projects I've done have been done for restaurants or bars, and in some cases they've been up on the rooftops of these places or connected to them somehow or other in the perimeters, and it could be easily confused as being some kind of advertisement for the establishment. And in 3 different cases, New York, Houston, Dallas, did have a problem where the city or whoever, the sign commission, said, "Oh, can't do it. It's some kind of sign, and you got to get it out of there."
I remember the neighborhood association around the Lone Star going absolutely bananas over the Iguana. And we were in court for weeks and months trying to prove that it was art, actual art, as opposed to junk.
The Iguana looked somehow like many of us felt about our lives at that time.
A little green around the gills.
Yeah, no, been very amphibious most of the time. You know?
This was posh Fifth Avenue, directly above Washington Square. And to see what looked to be slimy, scaly creature on top of a building, it just damaged the sensibilities of the people in the neighborhood.
John Matuzak and Andy Warhol and John Belushi and all kinds of characters came up there during the days when the Iguana was kind of a mystical experience.
The Lone Star was at a zenith of country music and Texas association power. We became an actual official embassy of Texas at that time. And Bob being a part of it was just, I think it was like having a guy writing the bomb down in Dr. Strangelove, and Bob was the perfect guy to get on the bomb, you know, and putting the Iguana up there was very much like that.
Over the past 12 years, Iggy the Iguana, all 40 feet of him, was as famous as the Lone Star Cafe itself, a down-home watering hole that featured boot-kicking music from blues to bluegrass. But those days are gone. The owners closed the Lone Star when the landlords tripled the rent. Iggy is the creation of the same artist who also put together the dragonfly that hangs from the chandelier. And when the bidding began for Iggy, it got spirited between two iguana lovers.
I get 17,500 bid once, 17,500 bid twice, 17,500 is yours. 17,500 bid all done, throw, and sold here at 17,500. What's your name, sir?
$17,500. Stuart Fisher, a Long Island real estate developer, bid and won for his wife to put on their estate in Virginia.
I'll keep on trying till I find that home on high. I'm casting my lasso toward the sky.
And there were about 5 or 6 artists in Dallas and Fort Worth at that time that were very instrumental in getting things that were going on in Texas noticed all the way to New York and California, and it became a major triad state of the two East Coast, West Coast, and the Southern Coast was brought together because of Bob Wade.
We just all kind of got together and then had different shows, and half of them lived in Oak Cliff. And it was kind of a scene, you know, that you never repeat, because it was the very beginning of I think, the local art scene in Dallas. You know, there'd been a local art scene in Fort Worth years before that, but now this was entirely a different thing, like the Texas Kid and all the really Texas artists.
Highway 66 is your best bet.
There's a Texaco station there.
And then you follow along.
And then turn right and just come on into Waxahachie.
Come on into Waxahachie.
And the map has come a long way.
The map has got miniature highways, little asphalt roads, about a quarter of a mile of roads. People can walk through there very easily now, even when it's rainy and muddy out there. We've had thousands of people come out, mostly kids, and I think we're probably working with the school system this next year to work with the field trip office, because I believe that most folks in the Metroplex will want to come and see this thing while it's still under construction and while the thing is going to be up during the bicentennial year on into probably 77. Back at that time, we were encouraged anybody and everybody just to come get involved in the map. There were two guys who sort of looked alike, both had white Cadillacs, and kind of hung out around Hall Street over there. The Texas Kid was one, and he hung every day, just hang out and, you know, just hung around so he could help out and volunteer. But so he would hang and come up with great ideas. He said, "Now I can make you a lighthouse for Maine." over there in Maine. He said, you don't have, Mr. Bob, you don't have anything over there in Maine. I can make you a lighthouse over there. And a couple of days later, he came back with the beautiful big, you know, sort of decreasing in size, oil barrel looking things, all painted up and rigged for lights, and it was just incredible, you know. And then he eventually parked his own cars out there, parked that white Cadillac right there in Detroit, where we also had, you know, it was perfect, you know. There's about 3 bridges, 2 of them cross the Mississippi, and we have a couple of tunnels that are Teflon coated going through the New Mexico mountain range. We're working with great big baked potatoes in Idaho. In fact, the Potato Commission from Idaho is underwriting several jumbo baked potatoes. We also had, like, we talked the telephone company into installing a phone booth. Then we would be way back, you know, it's like as big as a football field, so we'd be basically 300 feet back on the other corner of this big giant lot. People would be walking around this whole thing on that little paved road. And so when they got near the phone booth, we knew the number of the phone booth. So we'd call from our work trailer. We'd call over there, and it would be sitting there ringing. There's 2 kinds of people, right? There's the kind of person who they'll go in there and they'll answer that payphone. And then there are other people who just walk past. It's like the Iguanamobile. There are 2 kinds of people. Some people drive by, and they look. They want to see who is pulling this thing. That's one kind of person. That would be me. I would, of course, look and see who's pulling this weird thing. Then there's the kind of people who just
don't know at all.
Like that thing didn't exist, or you know, neat, but do not have the sense to look over and see who's towing it.
We're down here in wonderful Waxahachie, Texas, and we're here with the Texas Kid car, my truck, and the wonderful Bob Wade Iguanamobile trailer, and the Texas Kid truck over there. And it's really just a celebration of like Texas funk. This was originally the Swamp Rat, but it's turned into the Prophet Pop Zealot Mobile.
As we all know, the Texas Kid has gone to folk art heaven this last year. Probably rode the rocket ship all the way to heaven. This was his last kind of hurrah with the cars. And even though it's gone downhill a little bit, it did have lots and lots of stuff on it. Once again, proving that there's always, at least in Texas, somebody or something riding something else. Here we go way back. This decal, I remember these as a kid. Nice little area to be riding on. Carl's Corners should have that as a big deal there. He did have his whole beer drinking days too. I mean, you know, people towards the end, nobody ever saw a kid really drinking or anything, but there was a long period of time when he and I would go get a couple 6-packs and we'd get in the pickup truck and we'd drive around looking for weird limbs, chunks of weird tree trunks and weird limbs and stuff to make snakes and oddball stuff. And it was just great. And as we go along, you know, we'd get sloppier and we'd be driving on that truck and hit the brake and slam that thing in park and jump out and throw, you know, right there on somebody's curb and throw something in the back of the truck. And we thought we'd scored big. We could just see big money in those limbs, you know. See snakes and shit in red color and all. And the white people were going to pay us big money for all this stuff. You know, I'm sort of beyond the ultra for real folk artist eccentric kind of guy. I got 2 degrees, as I say when they say, is it art or is it a sign? Of course it's art because I have 2 degrees. Mom said that those degrees would come in handy someday. But I do need cronies or people or buddies or friends or somebody to say, boy, Bob, that really is a funny piece. It's great. And man, I'm sure glad you're able to, you know, get it past the signboard or get it end run around some deal and get it in this magazine or get it noticed there or here or whatever, because my work tends to not go down the conventional art world path. And so I've always had to somehow make my work take its own direction and get there in a slightly different way than the conventional gallery museum system.
The things he did that would be public art, I would call those installation art. Some people would call them signs, but they're not. They're like free art. See, I love yard art, for instance. It's the same sort of issue. It borders on primitive. You don't really have to have any taste. It's just this drive to produce something.
Finally, there is a man who lives in the Texas Panhandle who had some giant letters spelling out art erected in his backyard. That way, he said, when someone asked that perennial question, what is art, he could take them into the backyard and say, that's art, there it is. Well, another Texan has tried to answer the question, what is art, in Washington. George Herman has a leg up on the story.
People driving through Washington get accustomed to almost any sight. But 40-foot cowboy boots in an old parking lot? Actually, it's not a parking lot anymore. It's Washington's downtown public sculpture gardens. And this is a public sculpture named Study for Giant Cowboy Boots. Texan Bob Wade has been working 3 months on them. He's finishing the heels, and then will come the bootstraps, ready to be hoisted into place on the boot tops.
They simulate full quill ostrich skin, and that's what these funny little bumps all over it are. And the tops are calf skin with inlaid brown leather and sloping heels and pointed toes.
Have you figured out what shoe size they are?
We're trying to calculate it now. We think it'll probably be a 500 XXX.
Is it art?
I think it's probably art for sure, but we haven't really tried to get involved in that issue. We tell people that it's a creative project, and they like that.
Most of this stuff, of course, he's very clever. He makes things too large for people to collect. You know, that's what he primarily does.
I'd sure like to fit in his boots.
Well,
I'll tell you what.
Lord have mercy.
When the giant cowboy boots were loaded onto 3 18-wheeler flatbeds in Washington, D.C., heading for San Antonio, Texas, the driver said, well, Mr. Wade, your problem is, you know, this particular flatbed, the stuff is a little bit too high on there. That's illegal. This flatbed over here, the stuff's a little bit too wide. That's illegal. And the third one, the stuff that's hanging out over the end, it's too long. So we were going to come up with a song that was called Too High, Too Wide, and Too Long.
But Bob does large-scale outdoor stuff, which is meant to be experienced publicly, and it really is intended to be anonymous in the sense that it's not about I'm Bob and I did this. He's more interested in the outrageous reality of confronting something that's totally out of scale. It makes everybody who drives down the street, it makes them smile. That's why Bob does what he does. Did he tell you the story about the guys that were camping out in the cowboy boots?
Having installed the boots in San Antonio, and I was back in Dallas, and got a phone call from the management office, and they said, Mr. Wade, please get down here quick. The boots are on fire. We don't know what to do besides putting out the fire, but there's going to be some damage, so get here as quickly as possible. I said, well, I don't know how that could be. The boots really are not flammable. I don't know how they could be on fire, but I'll come down and take a look. So it turns out there was a wino who had moved into, or a homeless guy, wino, whatever, you know, maybe a combination wino and homeless, had moved into the boots because somebody had actually kicked a big hole kind of in this funny underneath spot, and you could crawl up under the boots and get inside these huge things, which is the size of a small apartment. Actually, once you were inside, well insulated, kind of a nice little spot to be. And this guy was in there cooking lunch, had little cans of Sterno, and you know, other types of smoke were emerging from this guy, and you know, the smoke was just going up to the top of the boots, and so the mall management saw smoke coming out from the top of the boots and said, they're on fire, quick, call the fire department.
Well, my eyes are stinging from the sweat of my brow from the last 100 miles I made. And I gotta stop off at the next tea.
Need a way to put more fluid in there. He had suggested we have some kind of little, going up to the top. Right here.
If we can rig this tool, if not, what we'll have to do is put some wing nuts on this plate.
Careful, guy.
What I needed was a baby Airstream, and a friend of mine in Poetry, Texas had access to one, so I bought that. Then through another funny contact, I found some people in Richmond, Virginia who were experts at working on reptilian kind of sculptural projects, and so I felt I could probably collaborate with them, which I did. Those two objects were then sent to Dallas to a warehouse that my friend Keith Turman has, and does a lot of art fabrication. And so we set out to put it all together and make it look great. Had to make a tail, of course, from scratch. I had to fly in my buddy Big Bill, my expert engineer, welder, you know, jack of all trades. And so I basically assembled a little crew of experts to do the fine-tuning and the overall fabrication of the Iguanamobile.
Picked a bad week to quit smoking. Bob Wade came to town.
Xerox of the finished thing today, so you'll see it. And there's some another article, a little piece came out in the Dallas Morning News. A good photo of it. Good photo of the head. You're gonna be so excited about the head, man. It's awesome. This guy here did a great.
Wheeling and dealing and setting up a project, that's exciting to me. Gets old after a while because it'll wear you out, making 10,000 phone calls. But I love the physical activity of going out and, you know, being out in the fresh air and pointing and doing the stuff. And I guess it's sort of like maybe what a movie director does in some instances, in that, you know, you really can't pretend to be able to walk over there and lift that huge piece of steel and hold it in place and weld it there and all that kind of stuff. So basically you do it the right way. You have somebody who is a professional go over there and do that, and then you tell them that you want to hire a left or right, and that becomes an extension of you, and it's just no different than a long handled paintbrush in a sense.
Bob! You gotta see this, Bob.
Look at that at night. Man. With that light on it. Now, y'all keep an eye open for any drunks coming around that corner right there, will you, please? Yeah, the whole guy going, God damn, I'm feeling faint.
Hold tight to the little fifth. Watch out when it start to twist. That's what Daddy used to tell him boys how to ride them bulls. There's a jingle in my jeans, sore places in between. And I'm leaving old Fort Worth with a push and a pull. 10-4, buddy, come on back. Horse trailer on the Cadillac. Oh, we're talking to the cowboy in a coupe de ville. Chug-a-lugging up one side, sliding down the other. I'm a lover of the other side of the hill.
Okay, we're here at Byron Jernigan's Taxidermy here in Waco, Texas, right at the corner of 18th and Franklin. Looking for old Byron?
Yeah, he's back here.
He back here making a mess? Byron Jernigan!
What's going on here?
How you doing, guy?
What you doing, Bob?
Long time no see. You know, this is a
Well, I did the armadillo special for him the way he wanted it. He was here, you know, we molded it together because that way he could get what he wanted out of it. Well, if he just told me, you know, I'd have a different idea. So I did that just especially for him. And we've mounted a couple of deer butts since, but we don't do very many of them. It's just not something everybody wants.
You didn't do a lot of stuff back here?
Oh yeah, we've stayed busy. We got horns everywhere.
This is right in the middle of this deer action, isn't it?
Well, it's beginning.
It's starting up right now?
The heaviest part of the year.
Somebody's brought in a nice little batch. Oh, they done shot half of them, haven't they?
Oh yeah, yeah, they're shooting them all the time. Well, I don't know any other artist that does the kind of work that he does. You know, most of them, they'll take a piece and they'll look at it and they'll paint it and reproduce it, but he actually uses it in his work, whatever he's happened to be doing.
Yeah, we got some mount over here.
You sure do. What is that, a turtle?
That's iguana.
Iguana.
Wait till you see down in his neck deal here. Got him a dewlap hanging there.
He does. That's an oversized iguana.
Texas-sized iguana.
I was down in Mexico one time. I didn't see any that big.
No, you got to come up to Texas to see iguanas that size.
Yeah.
It's good looking, isn't it?
Sure is. You make that?
I worked with some guys that made this out of Virginia. I'd made a big one years ago.
Yeah.
In fact, this little stuffed one is the one I've had ever since 1978.
Oh.
That one that was up in New York, remember that deal I had up there?
Yeah,
Huge thing up on the roof of that Lone Star Cafe.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
had that deal. And this was a little bit smaller than that, but they worked with a clay original on this. Yeah. Pulled the mold off of that, cast it in fiberglass. Still got that mold. You might run across somebody that needs a big iguana head.
I doubt it.
You don't think so?
I haven't yet.
Did you ever see the final bronze? You never did?
No.
Well, I've got to get that book out and show you. I've got that.
You got one with you?
Yeah, I'll dig it out of here. Here we go. There it is right there.
Oh, you got a rider on him now.
Talks about how it's used in the rodeos until they killed too many people and had to discontinue the use of the giant armadillos. There's only a few of them left before they became extinct, and now that they are extinct, that we had to make a monument to the last bucking, the giant bucking armadillos.
I ain't afraid of loving you, baby. I've been lonely too long to get hurt. I don't care what it is that you did when you lived in Fort Worth. The past is the past, little darling. I signed on for better or worse. I don't care what it is that you did when you lived in Fort Worth.
It's the new shuttle, y'all. Downtown Hotel's leaving in 2 minutes.
All right.
Well, let's load them up. Okay, we'll be out of y'all's way.
No,
I like the bandana around his bag. That's kind of cool.
I like the model right there.
I was in Santa Fe at one point on business on one weekend and met Lisa, my current wife, and we now have an 8.5-year-old, Miss Rachel.
My wife Lisa has a great sense of humor and understands the same weird, twisted stuff that I do. That's probably why we're married. In fact, she said, she used to write art criticism and reviews of art exhibitions for Art in American, Art News, and different magazines. They'll ask Lisa, well, why don't you write art reviews anymore? And her answer usually is, well, because Bob Wade warped my vision.
The excitement and jubilance over projects and people and just the love of life that he has was very much contagious, and it spread to a lot of people.
I met Bob when MCC just opened, and they were out on the campus, which is now TSTC, and he gave me a lot of good advice. I mean, he gave me a lot of advice. I didn't follow any of it. And then when he came out here to teach, he needed a drawing teacher, and so I was lucky enough to be there, and it was a neat association.
It was just working with him that expanded my sense of what I could get away with. I mean, what is art? Art is what you can get away with.
I mean, Mr. Wade, you're the guy who has caused these students to outrage the animal rights people by tattooing live animals. Are you the man who started that? No. But I did sign the paperwork for this guy's master's degree.
I didn't want to hurt the pig, that wasn't the point. But the point was to really create this live critter with wings on his back, real pig, real wings. We anesthetized him and shaved him just like you would prep any subject during an operation. It was totally sanitary. He didn't feel any pain at all. And when he woke up, he had wings, and he was just really great.
This cultural manifestation, this Mexican kitsch, or made for tourist consumption, whatever the stuff is, it's pretty darn ingenious, and I've been watching it for years and years and years, and you think, surely they've come to the end of all possibilities of stuffed armadillos or whatever the thing is. Next thing you know, they've come up with a brand new weird item that's just wonderful, like the little stuffed pigs now. And they got little corn cobs stuck up in their mouth, it's kind of this little deal, little scrunched up little deal, real twisted looking thing.
I stopped for beer at Carl's Corners on my way to Dallas. It was totally engulfed in flames, and the smoke was billowing over the highway, and the frogs were standing there happy.
Well, topping our news this morning, there is almost nothing left of a well-known truck stop in Hill County, south of Dallas.
For many travelers along I-35 south of the Metroplex, Carl's Corner was a landmark, the home of giant papier-mâché frogs that Carl had rescued from a Dallas nightclub a few years ago.
It was real sad because the frogs lost their feet and they kind of got charcoaled a little bit and burnt some.
Carl's Corners, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Carl's Corners, Texas. It's all one deal. It's a town, it's a truck stop, center of culture for many miles around. You ready for us, Carl?
I'm inside. Hell, I'm afraid to come out here. That's somebody that looks like he's hungry.
You got a chicken fried steak up in
Yeah,
there?
buddy. 5 chicken fries, barbecue sandwich, and you want a KC top sirloin steak?
You want cheese?
And he's the mayor, and he's the commissioner, and he's everything. It's just Carl and Carl's Corner. But the people that live there are very proud to live in Carl's Corner. About to have, as you know, the biggest topless bar in the world, and maybe just Central Texas.
Big wheels keep rolling. I feel the rumble beneath my feet. Big wheels keep rolling. The feeling's grown a part of me. The white lines look the same, no matter where you go.
It makes them wonder, you know, is this art, you know? Except those who know that it's art, you know, they don't wonder about it. They just wonder how long it's going to be up.
This is the Iguanamobile. Now, don't forget now. We've already done the big lizard head once before when we had the big sculpture in New York. Remember the giant iguana? Okay.
I do remember that.
So we got that, and that eventually, you know, was retired.
That was art. What is this?
This is beyond art. And then remember, we had the little trailer. The trailer that went to Paris. So what we did is sort of like Daddy-O's greatest hits. So we combine the iguana with the trailer that went to Paris, and you have the Iguanamobile.
Where art and science and commerce meet, you know, the artist has to either compromise or get somebody to fund his dreams, you know. And Daddy-O has been one of the most successful people I've known to dream his dream as purely as possible without compromising it.
Bob, among other things, is a wonderful scammer. I mean, his stuff is, it's just like that build it and they will come. I think he's pretty well hit that nail on the head.
It just took me around the corner, though, so I could say I had a ride in it.
You can get on my shoulders and we go around the corner and do it that way too.
No, you're not a dinosaur.
All right, I'm home.
Okay, no deal today?
I think we won't make a deal today. It's early. We're just not getting started. Wait till you see this ramp.
Art should be fun. And usually it's placed in a museum, which is sort of like a church. And so you go in there and you kind of worship the works of art. And his is out where people can have fun with it.
Now it says one way, do not enter. That couldn't possibly mean me, because I'm only going one way.
This is the first one of its species. Apparently the iguana has successfully mated with an Airstream camper.
A lot of shows that open in museums only appeal to a certain number of museum-going public. But if you put something on wheels, art on wheels, everyone's going to see that.
Well, we find that folk art, like people coming in the gallery, the children are the biggest responders. They can see the parallel in their own art. They understand the genuineness, the naivety. I like it.
Isn't this neat? Feel this tail. Isn't it fun?
That's
saw it on TV. I saw the iguana on TV, and it was blowing smoke out of its mouth.
He's looking for some friends. Y'all gonna be his friend? His name is Big Lick Lick.
We want smoke! We want smoke! We want smoke!
How did you make the smoke come out?
There is just one of those little theatrical devices in there, like you said, haunted houses or, you know, rock and roll shows. It's a little dude, you push the button, this liquid stuff that's made for that heats up and pushes it out. And the kids love it. Little kids just go nuts.
So here we are trying to teach children not to smoke, and you have
Not
smoking.
smoking, the iguana's out there smoking. That's right. Here we go. That's right. Just work against you every chance we get. So librarians can be rough, man. We go over there at St. Philip's School and start rigging the smoke machine on this rascal, and the next thing you know, the librarians out there telling us that they work real hard to keep these kids from not smoking, and then we come out there with the Iguanamobile and it smokes. Had to think fast on that when I told we were cooking a brisket inside there.
You can't hardly beat a good road trip, and you know, I had not realized it was really going to be a road trip. I thought I was just going to, you know, tow this thing from place to place, sign some books, do whatever, and move on. But you know, you keep running into all these characters.
Oh, it is so cute.
I see you color coordinate. You hadn't seen this before?
No, I've just got all these Xerox color things you sent me and all that stuff. I've seen it. Look at these cute little toes here. Now, what this guy needs is some boots for those toes. You know, some really good boots that would Texas sheep boots. And then he wouldn't get them all, he wouldn't get that toe gum under there, you know, on the asphalt highways. And I want to see the smoke come out of his nose.
Yeah, but how about a tongue lash?
Oh!
That's pretty good. That's what they say.
Some smoke came out of it. Where's the smoke? Oh, there it comes. Oh, wow. Oh,
do that.
Is that wonderful?
We're gonna start a
Is it
lift.
wonderful? Wonderful smoke. Oh.
The Iguanamobile is driving all over to sell these books. And also just to make people conscious that iguanas are good things. Iguana's a neat thing, isn't it? It's sort of Texas, huh? Is your iguana kind of that color?
It's a little lighter.
A little lighter than that. Well, he makes very colorful iguanas. And artists are allowed to take sort of, it's called liberties. You're an official iguana. The magic is what the art's about. It's not about craftsmanship and all that. There's a lot of good craftsmen in the world in terms of the arts. But somebody could light your imagination. That's the hard thing. And Bob lights your imagination.
He had a giant weenie that stretched, I guess it might have been 30 feet long. And it came out, he did it up at the post office, and it came down out the door and down the steps, a series of steps. And then it had Daddy-O in the middle of it with a saddle on it, riding it with it.
But then I bought one early one of yours that looks like a hot dog. You know, the hot dog with holes in it?
The weenie series.
The weenie series,
The
that's
weenies,
right.
the floating weenies and
Yeah,
the
that's
crazy
right.
weenie
I gave
series.
that to the Dallas Museum.
The next time I heard about him being an artist is when he was doing weenies. He's doing Wade's weenies. He did weenies in Dallas, big weenies, little weenies, and weenies with the reservoir tip. He was very famous for weenies. And he sold some, which was good because we didn't really think you could sell any.
Started out doing paintings, the weenie paintings and all that kind of, you know, funny Berkeley. Just after UT, went off to Berkeley and came back with all that kind of organic, you know, figurative, very strange, humorous, satirical, weird stuff. And so those weenie paintings ultimately evolved into experiments with big photographic canvases. And then the canvases pretty much then took over the photographic stuff, and I started doing, you know, things like those great little chewies here. Reminds me of those early food plates that I used to do. I'd go into a restaurant, and because I always thought that a big Mexican combination plate just had this great look to it. The way I got the beans over here, and you got the enchiladas happening here, and the rice. But the photographic thing then evolved into other figurative kinds of things. And at one point, I found in some kind of weird collection this wonderful postcard of the lineup of cowgirls, probably circa 1922. And I can remember blowing that up and donating it to an auction, a charity auction deal in Dallas. And when it came up for auction, the crowd went nuts. And I knew immediately there was some great, rapport and feedback on this cowgirl thing.
I wish he'd stayed with the weenie era myself, but, he got into these iguanas, I guess, designing that iguana for the Lone Star Cafe up in New York. But he mastered it, no doubt about that. Oh, my God.
Tonight, Borders is proud to welcome author-sculptor Bob Wade, who's up the front of our store signing copies of his new book, Daddy-O, Iguana Heads and Texas Tales. So come on up, meet Bob Wade, get a book, and see the Iguanamobile.
Still moving to me. I swim like a fish in the sea.
I talked to Lisa last night. She said, "You didn't bed down the entire film crew over there, did you?" She said, "That's rude." I said, "No, Langdon, he's got film in his blood. He likes that kind of thing."
And it's hard to explain how I feel. It won't go in words, but I know that it's real. I can.
Sugar Bear, you like those toes? Huh? You gonna pee somewhere? You're gonna feel my tire this morning. Breakfast is served.
You guys have had your breakfast.
What'd you have for breakfast?
You say you had carrots. Carrots and no cereal.
Wedding present for the Langdons. That's what you get when you get married. You get a binding couple.
That's right.
Love, this thing was great, man. Yeah. This was a fine unit. Drove it clear to New Orleans and then over to Houston and then towed it to Temple.
You drove it in the New Orleans in the Mardi Gras
parade, and there was another, just had a little, just a regular little, like a stool sitting here.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome.
It's one of the 8th wonders of the world. It used to be the Astrodome, and now everyone's coming down Richmond Avenue to check out this crazy saxophone.
Well, my old college buddy Bill Gallagher, who put together Billy Blues here, came to Santa Fe at one point and said, "Look, I'm doing this big place in Houston. I'd like for you to consider doing something big out front, a monument to the blues." Houston really has some big, serious scale. The buildings, the freeways, the billboards, everything here is just huge. And in order to be seen or even to fit in with the landscape, it's got to have some scale to it.
Every day we'd have these watch crews. We'd go and watch and see and wait till they finally got every part of the saxophone in place. And then it just got to be bigger than anyone ever imagined it would be. And the city fathers or somebody got all bent out of shape. And then we had to have a campaign that why it should stay there and be there.
Well, it certainly sends a message, and it's got city officials singing some sour notes. It is a 63-foot saxophone in front of a restaurant and blues club on Richmond. The owners say it's art, but city officials say it sends a message, so it falls under the city's sign ordinance.
Any object, pictorial or graphic representation to attract the attention of the public to your goods or services. And this definitely is an attention getter.
We don't claim it to be a trademark. It's not a trademark. It's just a monument erected for the recognition of rhythm and blues.
You're kind of happy about this controversial stuff, aren't you? It kind of get your blood going and you like this
Get
deal?
your blood going, get a couple of good photos in the paper, maybe a little TV. But you know what happens too is that it sets up the old dialogue about is it art or all those kind of aesthetic arguments. It's kind of like religion and politics and school and that kind of stuff. People love to argue about that deal, and it's good that they can sit around and argue about it and talk about it. And that's what public art does most of the time anyway. There's a lot of stuff up there. There's watering troughs, and we've got beer kegs at the top, and the surfboard is the reed, hubcaps, car hoods. There's a piece of a canoe. But then my daughter was walking through the house one day with a little gold saxophone, And I realized that that bottom curve was going to be my big challenge, how to solve that bottom curve of the sax. I said, wait a minute, the bottom curve of cars, toys, maybe a car, maybe a Volkswagen, like a Beetle has that perfect round curve if you have it upside down. So I quickly called somebody and said, go measure your Volkswagen, and then let's go look at the scale drawing on this thing and see if it has any possibility of working. It was right on the money. Upside down Volkswagen is perfect. There it is.
See him got his mouth open. He's
hungry.
Yeah, he's hungry. That's why he's got his mouth open for. Yeah, he'd be like feeding a hippopotamus because he's pretty big.
Oh, I'm just crazy about the iguana. It's just marvelous. It's funny how everybody's gotten absolutely mad about iguanas, haven't they?
This is Lionel Bevan, and I'm Ed Bass, and we're here to see Bob Daddy-O Wade's new self-portrait.
This is what we're going to stay in during deer season.
No, the large artillery comes right out through the mouth there, you see, and we just go ahead and just shoot everything in sight.
Look at it. That's Texas art. Bigger than life.
Bob Wade. It's just completely Bob.
I've been down so many times it looks up. I've been wrong so many times it seems right. I'm a fool to take the line you handed me. I've been blind, but now I see the light. Saw a stranger come to town the other day. I said, buddy, looks like you could use a friend. He said, I had one, a girl, but now she's gone. And I think that you might know just where she's been. I've been down so many times it looks up. I've been wrong so many times it seems right.
I think there's going to be, you know, a million other projects that I could do, and I won't have time in my lifetime to do them all, but I can do, you know, quite a few. Get a kick out of it, please some people, hopefully make some money on the side, and keep on going.
I've been blind, but now I see the light.
Yes, I'll tell you a story that'll thrill you, I know, of a horse that I owned out in New Mexico. He was swift as an arrow and black as a crow, with the spot on his forehead as white as the snow. His arched neck was hidden by a flowing black mane, and I called him Patonia, the pride of the plains. on you, poor fellow. I knew he was hurt, but we dashed onward and into that ford. You may look at the arrow that hangs on the wall. It went through my foot, stirrup and all. There's been many fine horses I've seen on the